back to your value proposition, which I think is amazing. You've got this bit of, we can save you money. We can then save you, we can reduce down your carbon footprint. But actually also there's a whole environment of learning. There is this piece of sort of going, actually, the way we work with you, we can change your environment. So, it could be, to do with air conditioning stuff. So actually this, and what impact has this environment had on children's learning? Because that is a big thing. And people sometimes forget about that, children learn better in different types of environments.
Yeah.
And so
and there's a whole debate going on at the moment about air quality and things like that. And we've seen £25 million of sensors being rolled out and to pick up the data. And I look at it and think, well, if we made them IoT-enabled sensors, we wouldn't then have to spend the labour cost of people going around and reading them. Does that make sense? So we've now put 40 secondary sensors into secondary school. Somebody's got to go and read those. And we've got to do some, but what is the actionable insight we've got from that data? And if we, and I say, for probably an extra £10 a sensor, we would have taken out the labour cost, but the labour cost actually over the period, and we've seen the unions asking, well, what's the department going to do about all of this? And you start to look at some, okay, how do we work on this? How do we deliver and really make an impact on what we're going to do with this? And again, if we look at LED lighting, LED lighting is a great thing. Even if it didn't save you money, from a learning point of view, making them brighter, making them more suitable from a learning point of view, it freshens up the space. The conversation I've had with a number of clients, they say, "Oh, we've now got to paint the rooms because actually we can see the dirt on the wall." That doesn't do me any favours, but it's that principle of value. So we're not just trying to do that. And again, if you're what we did when we did the Mount Learn pilot project with Ormiston and Western, part of the driver behind that project is they saw they had a maintenance issue on lighting. So they were getting their school condition allocation, their allowance, and they saw they had this £700,000 gap and £200,000 gap between the two. They need to spend on lighting over the coming years. So okay, if we spend that from an energy efficiency project point of view, it then releases us money back that we would have had to spend out of our SCA into spending on other things within the building. So again, so part of the way we started out is, okay, you need to spend £6 million a year on your estate. Okay, you're getting £3 million a year in your SCA. How do you fill that funding gap? And that's my job. How do I help Academy Trusts fill that funding gap to clear the backlog in their estate? Now, if that's by taking £500,000 a year out of their energy bill and putting that in, that only gets me a sixth of the way along the way. But again, it's starting to look at other things. It's looking at grants. It's looking at all those other things that we can start to do. But fundamentally, how do we get the education estate into a condition that it provides a conducive environment to learning? How do we reduce the carbon footprint? How do we make it more efficient? Again, part of one of the things we're playing with at the moment is looking at digital twins, looking at how that works and how we can understand whether or not rooms are actually being used in school. So before you go and build another room, are you using the ones you've got? And I think that's the conversations that we're starting to have on what's the air quality like. So again, if we had an IoT sensor in there, we can tell you the air quality is not always perfect and things like that, but in the digital twin, and that's the piece that we're working on. But again, we're putting some sensors in, finding out that the boiler room in a school is currently consuming 20% of the school's energy, and it's running all the time. And so how do we do something about that? And if it's using boiler rooms still running in the summer months, why? It's that sort of granularity. It's giving us that real powerful data that we want.
I think it's amazing. Like I say, it's a very, very straightforward sort of value proposition from anybody's perspective. And as a sort of product manager, I love that sort of stuff because for me, it's it's all about where's the value coming from. Yeah, I think. Oh, go on. Sorry.
So no, I think that's it, isn't it? There is no. Again, but I've had conversations with clients that say, "Okay, well, we want to collect this data," and I said, "Well, when are you going to use it? We haven't got any time this year to do it. We're going to do it next year. Don't collect it this year because it will be out of date as soon as you collected it." Does that make sense? So again, you make the actual insights. Collect the data when it's appropriate to collect the data. Don't just collect the data for collecting data's sake, or because somebody tells you you've got to collect it. Have that conversation, have that informed conversation. Look, if we collect it today, we'll have done, again, building condition. If we collect the building condition data today, but we're not going to do anything about it until next year, you will have probably spent money on your estate before you're going to do anything about it. It's getting that time. And it's not always, it's always going to change. Data's always going to change, but it's choosing when to collect it. But again, don't pay me to collect data for you if you're not going to do anything with it, because I cost money. I'm a consultant.
Yeah.
But don't. As I said, that's the journey that I'm trying to encourage people on. So.
No. Again, amazing. So you also, the other thing I think you sort of mentioned, you try to identify for schools and MATs and these establishments the sort of grants as well. Is that right?
Yeah. So there's always grant programs going on. We've seen the big £1 billion PSDS programs going on this year. We've been very successful around that. But I think one of the things I would say to any academy trust, I really don't believe the government are going to fund anything goes to any government grant scheme. Okay, we've seen the feed-in tariff stop on PV because it pays for itself. With LEDs, we've seen the Salex loan stop and things like that. So there's a number of things. There's private money out there to help you do that. But again, if you've got we've worked with one trust where they've used their reserves to fund the project and then charge the academies back for the electricity because they'll make more money doing that than they get by leaving with Virgin or NatWest or Lloyds. Does that make sense? Because you get 1% if you're lucky on your interest. The trust worked out by charging the academy back over 7 years for the money from their reserves. They're earning 17% interest on the money. So you're in that scenario. And again, there's obviously different rules on how much reserves you can have as an academy trust. A lot of academies just built up a lot of reserves last year because the buildings were closed, so a lot of money wasn't spent on schools and on buildings. Their energy bills were lower. So a lot of trusts we've talked to have actually got better reserves this year post-COVID and it's not always the case, but use those reserves to invest in your energy efficiency because, again, as I talked about earlier, PV, which pays back in, let's say, it pays back in 3 years against that. We can get you a warranted PV array for 25 years. It will have a warranted life, insurance back warranty for 25 years, because that's what the life panels of PV works for. Okay, and that will buy you energy at a fixed price at around about 4 pence a kilowatt hour. Okay, and you're seeing electricity at 30 pence, and you can buy it at 4. Okay, fixed price for 25 years. And I can buy you probably 20% of your energy as a school at a fixed price for 25 years. Why wouldn't you do it? And if you use your reserves, it comes in slightly less than that because that 4 pence or so is, But that's where we are on that model. Does that make sense?
Yeah, wow. 25 years.
Yeah, so the warranted life on a PV panel is 25 years.
Yeah.
Okay? The inverters are slightly around about 13, but one of the inverter companies we work with is offering us a warranty on their inverters for 25 years.
So looking forwards, so what would you like to see from government? Because some of this, it sounds, well, it doesn't sound, it is just too almost too sensible. And why isn't it just happening, with every MAT? It seems that, this is, you need to have these plans in place.
I think PSDS 1 caused a lot of disruption to the sector. It was very positive, £1 billion out into the sector, into the government, public sector. Now, if you're being devil's advocate and saying, well, okay, if the government's carbon footprint is 100% and education is 22%, okay, £220,000 should have gone into the sector. Okay, if the academy sector is half, let's say £9,000 is half of it, you'd expect £100,000 to go into the £100 million to go into the academy sector. Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, £30 million went into the academy sector. Okay, as we said earlier, we got about a third of that for our clients and things like that. So you look at it in that context, that it created a lot of noise about, and I think everybody's now expecting there's another PSDS grant coming out for, and LED and PV were funded through PSDS 1. They weren't funded through PSDS 2 and 3 have all been about heat, which is what PSDS 1 was supposed to be about. So PSDS 2 and 3 have been purely about heat. Very hard to get the figures to work in the academy sector. Work very well in the health space, in universities where you've got big buildings with big boiler plant. Small boiler plant in schools, it's hard to work. We did 280 million pounds of bids in PSDS one for our clients. We did £2 million of bids in PSDS 2 and PSDS 3. We've probably done a similar sort of size. That makes sense. So that's the challenge of each of the hurdles. The pots have been smaller. So I think what government, if I was government, I would say we're not going to fund LED and PV in the education space, okay, through grant. Okay, we might fund it through SCA and encourage you to do it and things like that, but we're not going to. There's going to be no more grants out there for you to bid for. Just get on and do it either with private money or do it with your own money. And I think that because I think lots of academies are waiting for PSDS 4 that's going to give them a big capital grant. So I think if I just give people transparency, say actually we're not going to do this. Okay, we're going to support you on building fabric, and we've had great conversations with the department about building fabric, about heat plants and things like that, which is the difficult stuff to do. It's hard to fund. Schools can't afford to fund those sort of things. So yes, focus on those, but don't focus on the easy wins, because the easy wins, the trust should just get on and do. Don't wait anymore. And I think a part of it as well, I think there's a whole range of conversations about energy pricing. And I think I use this analogy a lot in conversations recently. I can remember when petrol was £1 a gallon, okay? It's now £1.50 a litre. That isn't just down to market pricing, okay? That's down to taxation, it's down to government policy, because the government wanted us to use less petrol. They wanted us to drive more efficient cars, okay? So when we see electricity at 30 pence a kilowatt hour, are the government going to intervene in that sector? Okay, because part of the reason if we can't afford to do it, we'll stop doing it. So if we can't afford to buy lots of electricity, we'll find ways to buy less electricity. Okay, so it is that. But also, I've been doing some work this week with some of my colleagues are doing a presentation later on today for the Trust Network. We've been looking at some of the data. If we look at energy price inflation between 2004 and 2008, it's increased by 10%. Okay. So we use 5% as our indexation what we're 5 to 7% is what we normally set when we're doing PV and LED projects to say, well, this is what we can save you. Okay. We also do it if your price doesn't go up, because the baseline is if it saves you money and your price isn't going to go up over the next 10 or 25 years, you're going to save money. Okay. But if you take from 2004 to today, energy price inflation at the same rate as it was between 2004 and 2008, okay, today's electricity price will be between 25 and 28 pence. Okay, if that had followed through. Last year we were seeing 18 pence, so a lot below that. It was running around about 7% electricity price inflation between 2004 and 2019-20. Okay, so it was running about 7%. But if it ran at 10%, we will be at the prices we are actually seeing today. Yeah. So, and if you look historically, that's how, I say, over the last 15 years, if you looked at it, it's been running at 7. So the difference between 7 and 10 isn't huge, but the impact it has is it takes it from what we would expect as 18 today to 30. Does that make sense? So I think that's a clarity I would give if I was government. We're not going to fund LED. We're not going to fund PV. Just to a certain extent, go and do it. I would encourage people to avoid power purchase agreements, because where does the savings go in power purchase agreements? When you're seeing power purchase agreements at 10 pence, 12 pence a kilowatt hour in a power purchase agreement, and we're buying energy for you when you pay for it either through a finance operational lease or through using your SCA, we're seeing energy prices between 4 and 5. Where's that other 6 pence going? Wow. Okay, it's going to the private sector. It's not going to the schools. Okay, so yes, some trusts want to do power purchase agreements because, and I don't think it's. If you look back 5 years ago, probably 10 years ago, it was the right thing to do because the FIDs and all those sort of things. But today, I wouldn't do a power purchase agreement. Okay, so I'll give some advice on that as to why I do it, because where does the risk and reward sit? Does that make sense? So
absolutely.
Okay, and that's what it's about. Power purchase agreements are just PFI fundamentally, and we know where PFI got us all. So so I think they're the sort of things. But I say, if I was government, get trust to focus on the easy stuff and fund in a sensible way, not through the complexities of PSDS 3, in a simpler way, building fabric programs, electric heating programs, I'd also do a big focus in the short term on controls. And I think because when I say that 50% of gas in schools is burnt when there's nobody in the building, just switch the stuff off. Okay, and that, okay, should that be a government thing? Should that be trust just getting on and doing it? It is a fine line, but I think we've built lots of complicated buildings. The Building Skills for the Future program, the Candidates program, has built some stunning buildings, but the smart buildings that make us stupid get used because we don't know how to use them. And as I say, I'm responsible for budget managing some of those buildings, and I couldn't work out how to switch them off when I was managing them. But you just need an on-off switch at times, and I think it's as complicated as that. But I think they're the sort of things that I would go forward on. And shout about success stories. We know what we've done. We shared some of that education stage last week with some of our clients, but it is making that good practice out there.
Yeah, man, excellent, brilliant advice. Do you know, it's been, as I thought it was going to be, amazing conversation with you for sure.
Excellent.
So
it was good to catch up.
Yeah,
it was good to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think everyone listening, definitely focus on, you can be, any Matt that's listening, you could be reducing down your energy costs, but also at the same time, you could be reducing down your carbon footprint, which is, at the moment with COP 26 happening, that's really, really important. I think also, as Jonathan's been talking about, there are benefits also from an environmental perspective, and also, but I think the key is, I think what Jonathan's just been saying is, look at the things that you can change now and don't delay them, focus on the now as much as possible.
There's 5 key things I would say to any trust. If you're looking at energy efficiency, you're looking at how you reducing your carbon footprint. 5 quick wins: LED lighting, PV panels, cloud computing, switch stuff off, and controls. Does that make sense? Do those 5. And the switch stuff off is educating your staff to switch stuff off. Does that make sense? But those 5 things are what I would encourage any trust to do, any school to do, is focus on those 5. Get those 5 right. You'll probably take 50% out of your carbon footprint by next September. And you might want to do that if you're in a fixed price electricity deal or gas deal to next September at 18 pence or 15 pence, which is what we see. And it's going to expire next September. Do before next September. Don't wait till next September to happen, because next September, when your contract renews, you will get hit with it. You've got 12 months nearly to do something about it. Hopefully, use the incentive of COP. Use to get on and do something in the next 12 months. That's my last bit of advice to everybody. Nick.
No, amazing. Far better put than I could have done. That's for sure.
Excellent. So.